think the hardest part about something ending is realizing it was already ending while you were still trying to save it. When I look back now, I can see it clearly. The small pauses, the delayed replies, the way their voice changed just slightly. Not enough to call it out, but enough to feel it. But back then, I called it stress. I called it timing. I called it, we're just going through a phase. Because admitting it wasn't meant to last would have meant admitting I was holding on to something already slipping through my hands. It didn't start badly. That's the thing. It started with intensity, with late night conversations that made sleep feel optional, with inside jokes that felt sacred, with that rush of feeling chosen, like out of everyone in the world, they saw me. And when you feel seen like that, you don't question it. You don't prepare for it to end. You just lean in. I leaned in fully. I memorized their patterns, their favorite songs, the way they said my name when they were tired. I built a version of the future in my head without even realizing it. Not a marriage and forever, nothing dramatic, just consistency, just comfort, just them, staying. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling like I was the only one building. They still talked to me, still laughed, still said the right things, but something was missing. Effort. And when effort slowly disappears, you start replacing it with your own. I texted first more often, I asked deeper questions, I reassured them when they seemed distant. I made excuses for their silence. They're just busy. They're going through something. It's not about you. And maybe it wasn't. But that didn't change the feeling. The subtle loneliness of being connected to someone who is already detaching. I felt it before I admitted it. That quiet instinct that whispers, this feels different now. But I ignored it because I didn't want to be dramatic. Because I didn't want to lose them. Because I thought love meant fighting harder when things got uncertain. What I didn't understand yet was that love isn't proven by how hard you fight alone. And sometimes something isn't falling apart because you didn't try enough. Sometimes it's falling apart because it was never meant to stay together. But I wasn't ready to accept that yet, so I stayed. And I tried and I hoped, even when deep down a quiet part of me already knew this wasn't going to last. The realization didn't hit all at once. It wasn't some dramatic fight. No screaming, no slam doors, no final speech about how we want different things. It was quieter than that. It was in the space between texts. The way replies became shorter. The way conversations that used to flow for hours started feeling forced after 5 minutes. I remember staring at my phone one night, reading the same dry message over and over, trying to find hidden meaning in it. Maybe they were tired, maybe they didn't mean it that way, maybe I was overthinking. I was always the one overthinking. But overthinking only happens when something feels off, and something felt off. They didn't ask about my day the way they used to. They didn't notice small changes anymore. They didn't look at me the same. And when someone stops noticing you, that's when it starts ending. I tried to compensate. I became lighter, easier, less needy. I stopped bringing up things that bothered me. I told myself not to ruin the vibe. I convinced myself that if I could just be a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little less emotional, maybe it would go back to how it was. But here's the truth I didn't want to face. When something is fading, you can't love it back to life. You can't effort your way into someone's certainty. You can't compete with someone's indifference, and I started to feel tired. Not of them, but of carrying it. Carrying the conversations, carrying the reassurance, carrying the hope. It felt like holding water in my hands. The tighter I tried to grip it, the faster it slipped through my fingers. There was one moment I'll never forget. We were together, physically in the same space, but emotionally it felt like there was an ocean between us. They were talking, smiling, present, but not with me. And that's when it hit. You can feel alone even when someone is sitting right next to you. That kind of loneliness is different. It's heavy, because it forces you to admit something. You're fighting for something the other person already let go of. I went home that night with a quiet ache in my chest. Not heartbreak, not yet, just clarity trying to break through denial. I lay in bed replaying everything. The beginning, the excitement, the promises that weren't promises but felt like them. And for the first time, I allowed the thought to fully form. Maybe this isn't temporary. Maybe this isn't a phase. Maybe this is the end, just stretched out slowly so it doesn't look like one. And that's when the question changed. It stopped being, how do I fix this? and started becoming, why am I trying to save something that doesn't want to stay? That's a painful question, because once you ask it, you can't unsee the answer, and the answer was simple. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It wasn't that I didn't try hard enough. It wasn't that I failed. It was that this, whatever it was never meant to last. And deep down, I think we both knew it. I was just the only one still trying to pretend otherwise. Letting go didn't happen the day it ended. It happened in layers. First, I stopped arguing in my head. I stopped replaying conversations trying to decode where it shifted. I stopped rewriting the past to make it feel fixable. Because once you see something clearly, you can't go back to pretending. I realized I wasn't actually scared of losing them. I was scared of losing the version of myself that believed this was finally it. The version of me that thought, maybe this time it'll stay. That's what I was grieving. Not just the person, but the hope. And hope is harder to bury than people. At first, I wanted answers, closure, a clean explanation I could hold in my hands. But the truth is, not everything ends with clarity. Some things fade because they were only meant to teach you something, not stay with you forever. And when I finally stopped fighting the ending, something strange happened. I felt lighter, still sad, still disappointed, but lighter. Because I wasn't dragging something behind me anymore. I wasn't trying to convince someone to see my value. I wasn't overextending myself to maintain something that was already collapsing. I started noticing how much of myself I had minimized to make it work. How often I swallowed words. How often I acted unbothered. How often I accepted less than I needed just to avoid losing them. And that realization hurt, because it meant I wasn't just losing them. I had been losing myself too. But here's the part that changed everything. I didn't hate them. I didn't turn cold. I didn't decide love was stupid. I didn't convince myself I'd never care again. I just understood. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to show you what you tolerate, to show you how deeply you can love, to show you where your boundaries should have been. And once the lesson is learned, the connection has no more purpose. That doesn't make it meaningless, it just makes it temporary. I stopped romanticizing what it could have been. I stopped imagining alternate endings. I stopped wishing they would wake up one day and suddenly become the version I needed. Because if someone has to transform completely to love you properly, they were never aligned with you to begin with. Letting go wasn't loud, it was quiet. It was choosing not to text, not to check their social media, not to ask mutual friends how they were doing. It was choosing peace over curiosity. And slowly I started feeling like myself again. The version of me that didn't revolve around someone else's attention. The version of me that felt steady without external reassurance. The version of me that understood. If it was meant to last, it wouldn't have required me to shrink. And that's when the bitterness disappeared. Because I wasn't rejected. I was redirected. It wasn't taken from me. It was removed. And there's a difference. I used to think every ending meant failure. Like if something didn't last, it must not have been real. Or I must not have tried hard enough. Or maybe I just wasn't enough to make someone stay. But now I see it differently. Some things are real even if they're temporary. Some connections are intense because they were never designed for longevity. They burn bright. They feel significant. They teach you something and then they end. Not because you ruined them. Not because they were fake, but because they fulfilled their purpose. It was never meant to last. And that doesn't make it a waste. It made it a chapter. I stopped asking, why didn't it work? And started asking, what did it teach me? It taught me how quickly I attach when I feel understood. It taught me how deeply I love when I feel chosen. It taught me how easily I ignore my intuition when I'm afraid to lose someone. But it also taught me something else. I don't want half effort. I don't want uncertainty disguised as mystery. I don't want potential. I want consistency. I want something that doesn't require me to question it every night. Something that doesn't feel like I'm constantly auditioning for reassurance. Something that doesn't slowly drain me while I call it love. And if that means some things end early, good. Because I'd rather something end than stay in a space where it was quietly deteriorating. I no longer romanticize what we could have been. Because what we could have been would have required them to become someone else. And love shouldn't require transformation to feel secure. It should feel aligned. Now when I look back, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude. Gratitude that it didn't drag on longer than it needed to. Gratitude that it showed me my patterns. Gratitude that it forced me to raise my standards instead of lowering them further. The ending wasn't a punishment, it was protection. And maybe the most powerful realization of all is this. If it was meant to last, it would have required effort from both sides. It would have felt steady. It would have grown naturally instead of being forced. Love that's meant for you doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't make you question your worth. It doesn't slowly fade while you're fighting to keep it alive. It stays. And if it doesn't stay, let it go. Because not everything that feels intense is meant to be permanent. Some people are lessons, some are mirrors, some are reminders, and some are simply experiences that prepare you for something deeper. It was never meant to last. And now, I'm finally okay with that. Not because it didn't matter, but because I matter more. You used to be my best friend, the person I would choose over everyone else. What changed? I've asked myself that question more times than I'll ever admit. Not out loud, just in the quiet moments. When something reminds me of you without permission. When I hear a joke you would have laughed at. When I instinctively reach for my phone before remembering there's no point anymore. You used to be the first person I told everything to. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because somehow your opinion mattered more than anyone else's. Your voice carried weight. Your presence carried peace. And I didn't even realize how rare that was while I had it. I just thought you'd always be there. We didn't become close all at once. It happened slowly. One conversation that lasted longer than expected. One moment of honesty neither of us planned. One night where neither of us wanted to say goodbye first. And suddenly you weren't just someone I talked to. You were my person. The one I told things I didn't tell anyone else. The one who saw parts of me I kept hidden from the world. You knew when I wasn't okay without me saying it. You'd ask, talk to me. What's wrong? And I would. Because with you, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to be the strong version of myself. I could just exist. And that was enough for you. There's something dangerous about that kind of connection. Because you don't prepare for it to end. You don't think about life without it. It becomes part of you. Part of your routine. Part of your identity. You stop imagining endings. Because some part of you believes this is permanent. That this is different. That this is safe. I don't know when things started changing. That's the worst part. There wasn't a moment. There wasn't a fight. There wasn't a clear ending. Just distance. Quiet, gradual distance. Your replies got shorter. Your energy shifted. You stopped asking how I was. Stopped noticing the things you used to notice instantly. I remember staring at our messages, rereading them, wondering if I did something wrong. Wondering if there was a version of me you got tired of. Or if you just found someone who made you forget about me entirely. And I hated myself for even thinking that. Because I trusted you. I trusted us. And y'all, I tried to ignore it at first. Told myself you were busy, tired, going through something. I gave you space even when it hurt. Because I didn't want to be someone you felt obligated to respond to. I didn't want to be the person you sighed at before replying. So I became quieter, smaller, less present. Not because I cared less, but because I cared too much to push you away completely. And the craziest part is, even while you were slowly leaving, you still meant everything to me. I still chose you, even when it stopped feeling like you were choosing me. I still defended you in my head, still made excuses for your absence, still held onto the version of you that used to stay, made replies, and canceled plans and conversations that felt forced instead of effortless. Until one day you weren't my best friend anymore. You were just someone I used to know everything about. And that's a different kind of pain. Because you're not grieving a person who disappeared. You're grieving a person who's still alive. Just no longer yours. Sometimes I wonder if you ever think about me, if something ever reminds you of how close we were. If you ever miss me the way I miss you. Or if I became easy to forget. Easy to replace. Easy to move on from. Because I'll be honest. You weren't easy to lose, you weren't easy to replace. You weren't easy to forget. You were home, and losing you didn't just break my heart. It broke the part of me that believed some people stay forever. You used to be my best friend, and I still don't know what changed. I just know that one day, you stopped choosing me. And I never stopped choosing you. I think the part that hurt the most wasn't the day you left, it was all the days after. The days where something happened and you weren't the first person I told anymore. The days where I'd pick up my phone out of instinct, already knowing there wouldn't be a message from you. The days where I had to teach myself not to look for you in places you used to be. Because when someone becomes part of your everyday life, losing them doesn't feel like a single moment. It feels like 1,000 small losses, over and over again. I remember the exact feeling of realizing I couldn't come to you anymore. Not because I didn't want to, but because you weren't there in the same way. Your responses felt distant, polite, like you were talking to someone you used to know, not someone you once couldn't go a day without. And I tried to act like it didn't affect me, tried to match your energy, tried to pretend I didn't notice the difference. But I noticed everything. I noticed how you stopped asking questions, how conversations died faster, how I became the only one trying to keep them alive. And there's nothing more humiliating than feeling yourself become optional to someone who once made you feel essential. I started questioning everything. Was any of it real? Did you ever care the way I cared, or was I just there when it was convenient? When you were bored, when you needed someone to listen? Because when you stopped needing me, you stopped choosing me, and that realization changes you. It makes you quieter, more careful, more guarded, not because you want to be, but because you don't ever want to feel that disposable again. There were nights I sat there staring at our old messages, reading conversations from a version of us that doesn't exist anymore, and I'd wonder how two people could go from talking every single day to nothing, no closure, no explanation, just silence. Like everything we were meant less than I thought it did, and silence is the worst answer of all, because it forces you to create your own conclusions, most of which hurt more than the truth probably would have. I never told you how much it broke me, how losing you didn't just hurt, it changed me. It changed how I trust people, how I open up, how I let people get close. Because you taught me that even the person who knows you best can still become a stranger, and that's a terrifying thing to learn. The truth is, I wasn't just losing you. I was losing the version of myself that existed when you were in my life. The version of me that felt understood, chosen, safe, and I've spent a long time trying to find him again. But some parts of you don't come back the same after someone you trusted walks away without warning. Some parts of you stay behind with them, and you just learn to live with what's left. The hardest part is you didn't disappear all at once. You faded slowly, so slowly I didn't even realize it was happening until you were already gone. At first it was small things. You stopped telling me about your day, stopped sharing the random thoughts you used to trust me with, stopped needing me the way you used to, and I told myself it was nothing. People get busy, people change. That's normal, right? But deep down, there was this quiet voice in my head that already knew the truth. I was losing you, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried to hold on. I tried to be easier to love, quieter, less emotional, less needy. I stopped bringing up things that bothered me, stopped asking questions I was afraid of hearing the answers to. I made myself smaller, just so you'd have more space to stay. But the sad part is, you don't lose people because you took up too much space. You lose them because they were already leaving, and I was the only one pretending we were still the same. I remember the moment it really hit me. It wasn't during a fight. It wasn't during some dramatic ending. It was during a normal, ordinary moment. Something happened, and for the first time, you weren't the person I wanted to tell. Not because I didn't care about you, but because something inside me knew you didn't care the same anymore. And that realization didn't feel loud. It felt quiet, heavy, final, like watching the last light in a room turn off. You became someone I used to know, someone I had memories with but no future with. And that's a different kind of pain, because you're still alive, still out there, still existing in the same world as me, but I can't reach you anymore, not in the way that mattered. Sometimes I still think about you, not in the way I used to, not with hope, just with this strange sense of disbelief, like I can't fully process how someone who meant everything became nothing, how we went from being inseparable to strangers with history, And the worst part is, I don't even think you realize what you did to me. Because for you, it was probably just moving on. But for me, it was losing the one person I never thought I'd have to live without. And the truth is, I blamed myself for a long time. I kept replaying everything in my head like there was some exact moment where I ruined it. Some sentence I shouldn't have said. Some version of me that wasn't enough. I convinced myself that if I had just been better, you would have stayed. If I was more confident, more interesting, less emotional, less me, maybe you wouldn't have left. But the hardest thing I've had to accept is this. You didn't leave because I was too much. You left because I wasn't enough for you. And those are two very different things. I think what hurts the most isn't that you're gone. It's that you stayed long enough to become part of me. You became my routine. My first thought when something good happened. My first instinct when something went wrong. You weren't just someone I loved. You were home. And when you left, you didn't just take yourself. You took the version of me that existed with you. The version that felt safe. The version that wasn't constantly afraid of being abandoned. People think heartbreak is loud, crying, begging, breaking down. But the real heartbreak is quiet. It's checking your phone and realizing there's nothing there. It's seeing something that reminds you of them and having no one to send it to. It's missing someone who's still alive. It's waking up and remembering over and over again that they chose a life without you in it. I don't hate you, and I don't think I ever will. Because even though you broke me, you also showed me how deeply I'm capable of loving. You showed me the parts of myself that were real, the parts that cared without conditions, the parts that stayed even when you didn't. And maybe one day, you'll just be a memory that doesn't hurt anymore. Maybe one day I'll hear your name and feel nothing. Maybe one day I'll stop wondering why I wasn't enough. But until then, there's a version of me that still exists in the past, still standing there, still believing you were the one person who wouldn't leave, still not understanding how my best friend became someone I had to learn how to live without. You think you know someone. You trust them with pieces of yourself you don't show anyone else. You listen when they talk. You notice the little things. You hold space for them in ways that aren't flashy but are meaningful. And in return, silence, dry replies, absence where warmth used to be. It starts subtly. They check in less. They don't ask how your day was. And at first you tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're tired. Maybe it's just a moment. But your chest tightens in ways words can't explain. You notice every shift, every pause, every small distance they put between you and them. And then comes the heartbreak, the slow, quiet heartbreak of realizing you've been loving someone who doesn't love you the same way. Not because they're cruel, not because they meant to hurt you, but because they didn't notice. They didn't see how much of yourself you poured into them. They didn't recognize that when they pulled back, your world shifted. You replay everything, every conversation, every message, every time you tried to be enough, and the truth sinks in. Being enough wasn't the point. They weren't prepared to meet you where you were. They liked the idea of you, the comfort of your loyalty, the consistency of your care, but the real you, the one who loves deeply, quietly, fiercely, that one didn't fit the story they were willing to write. You start shrinking, not in a malicious way, but instinctively. You over-explain. You double text. You become smaller so your presence isn't overwhelming. You hope somewhere that if you offer enough, if you try hard enough, they'll choose you, but the choice was never yours to make. And it hurts so much more than any fight or betrayal, because it's not a sudden break. It's a slow erosion. You're left holding all the fragments of the connection that felt like home, while they move on unaware of the weight they left behind. But heartbreak like this teaches something. It teaches that caring too much doesn't make you weak. It teaches that loving quietly doesn't make your love invisible. It just means it's rare. It teaches that attachment isn't shameful, it's human. And most importantly, it teaches that your heart has limits, and that some people aren't meant to stay. They're meant to show you what real love feels like when it's not returned. So you mourn, you grieve, you feel the hollow ache of being someone's constant when you weren't theirs. But slowly, you reclaim your space. You remind yourself that your loyalty is precious, that your quiet love is a strength, that the way you give yourself to people is beautiful, And one day, it will be met by someone who sees it, who doesn't take it for granted, who won't leave without realizing the weight of what they lost. Until then, you carry on. You hold your heart with care. You give to those who reciprocate, and you protect the parts of yourself that matter most. And maybe that's the hardest heartbreak of all. Learning that sometimes love isn't enough, but yourself finally is, after the heartbreak and the world feels quieter. Not the calm kind of quiet, but the heavy kind that presses against your chest when you try to breathe. You notice the little things now, the empty space where their laughter used to live, the messages that no longer come, the absence of someone who once made every day feel brighter. You start replaying memories not because you want to, but because your brain refuses to let them go. You think about all the mornings you stayed up texting, all the nights you sat listening while they poured out their life, all the times you tried to show them love in ways they didn't see. And you realize the cruel truth. Your care was never enough, not because it lacked depth, but because it was given to someone who wasn't ready, someone who didn't notice what they had. You try to fill the emptiness. You text friends more, throw yourself into work, binge shows, do anything to keep your mind busy. But the quiet moments come back, relentless. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, you feel the weight of every second you were devoted to someone who didn't stay. You feel the ache of giving your heart fully and not having it return the same way. It's tempting to blame yourself. Maybe if you were funnier, if you were louder, if you were more outgoing, they would have stayed. Maybe your quiet way of loving wasn't enough for them. But deep down, you know that's not the truth. The problem wasn't you, it was that they never truly met you where you were. Never learned to see the depth beneath the calm exterior. And slowly, painfully, you begin to understand. Heartbreak like this doesn't just hurt, it teaches. It shows you who sees you, who notices your effort, who can match your quiet loyalty with real care. It teaches that your love, steady and deep, isn't a flaw, it's rare. And it teaches that some people aren't meant to stay, no matter how much you give, because their hearts aren't ready to hold yours. You're left with pieces of a love that was never fully yours. And in picking them up, you start to rebuild, not for them, not for anyone, but for yourself. You remind yourself that your heart is valuable, that your quiet love is a strength, and that someday someone will meet it fully without taking it for granted. The days start to blur, but something begins to shift. You notice it in the small moments, when you wake up without checking your phone for a message that won't come, when you go out and enjoy your own company without thinking of them, when you smile at a memory without the sting of longing. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there. A tiny spark that reminds you who you are outside of them. You begin to recognize patterns in yourself. The way you gave too much too fast. The way you depended on their energy for your own happiness. The way your loyalty was extended even when it wasn't asked for. And instead of blaming yourself, you start learning from it. You see your quiet love not as a weakness, but as a rare gift. A depth most people won't understand, but that the right person will cherish. It's not easy. Nights still come where the silence is deafening, where the ache feels unbearable. You catch yourself imagining them, wondering if they think of you the way you think of them. You remind yourself to breathe, to stay present, to not let the what-ifs control you. Slowly, the focus turns inward. You start filling your time with things that matter to you. Small joys, long walks, music that resonates. Books that speak to your soul. You reconnect with yourself in ways you didn't know you could. Your heart, once so exposed, now holds boundaries. You learn that love isn't about giving endlessly to someone who doesn't see it. It's about recognizing your own value, respecting your own heart, and being patient for someone who can meet you where you are. And in that patience, there's power. The heartbreak that once felt like it would consume you becomes a teacher. You remember that caring deeply is not a flaw. That needing quiet, needing steadiness, needing someone who can match your love in depth is not too much. And slowly the sting of loss softens into clarity. The right person will not drain your heart, will not take your loyalty for granted, will not expect you to perform to earn their attention. You begin to hope again, not desperately, not with attachment, but with a quiet confidence that what's meant for you will recognize your depth. That heartbreak, as painful as it was also a filter. And now finally, you can see clearly who belongs in your life and who is never ready to stay. And then comes a day when you finally feel it. The weight lifting, the chest ache softening, the constant replay of their absence no longer controlling your mind. You realize you've carried yourself through storms you didn't think you could survive. Every sleepless night, every overthought message, every longing glance, it all shaped you, but it didn't break you. You start to live in the spaces you once reserved for them. Mornings feel lighter. Music doesn't sting as much. You laugh without the shadow of expectation. You don't need someone to validate your worth anymore, because you see it yourself. Your love once poured into someone who didn't ask for it is now held carefully, intentionally, reserved for those who will see it as the treasure it is. You remember the quiet heartbreaks, the moments you overextended, the nights you felt invisible, and you forgive yourself. You forgive yourself for caring too much, for hoping too hard, for offering loyalty to someone who didn't know what to do with it. You understand now, loving deeply is not a flaw, it's a strength, but it needs protection. And with that understanding comes freedom. You start to notice the difference between attention and intention, consistency and obligation, presence and performance. You stop chasing people who can't meet you, who can't match your depth. You stop shrinking to fit into someone else's expectations. You stop fearing silence and start valuing your own voice. The heart that once ached so fiercely is still soft, still capable, still full, but it is yours again. You've reclaimed it piece by piece, boundary by boundary, moment by moment. And in doing so, you find peace in the knowledge that the right person won't make you small. The right person won't demand more than you can give. They'll cherish it all. You're ready now, not desperate, not waiting, not attached to what was lost, but open to connection that feels safe, real, and mutual. Open to love that doesn't consume you but uplifts you. And most importantly, open to yourself, finally at home within your own heart, finally whole again. I don't even know where to begin. Most days I wake up feeling like I'm already behind, like the world started moving before I even had a chance to catch my breath. I go through the motions, shower, breakfast, work, school, scrolling endlessly, but inside, something always feels off, heavy, quiet, constant. I watch people around me, people who seem so sure of themselves, so steady, so normal. They laugh easily, they connect easily, they don't overthink every word or gesture. And I wonder, why can't I be like that? Why am I like this? I think about all the times I've cared too much, loved too much, hoped too much. All the times I gave more than I got back. All the times I stayed in spaces that made me feel invisible. And it's exhausting to admit, but I realize I do it every single time. Not because I have to. Not because anyone demanded it. But because I think that if I give enough, I'll be chosen. I'll be seen. I'll be loved the way I've always wanted. And every time, it fails. Not completely, not in a dramatic, he left way. It fails slowly, quietly, subtly. They stop texting first. They stop asking how I'm doing. They laugh, but not with me. They drift. And I stay. I stay longer than I should. I care harder than I should. And I wonder, again, what's wrong with me? It's not just about love. It's about friendships too. The same patterns repeat, the same effort and balance, the same quiet heartbreak of giving more than I receive. And I start questioning myself. Maybe I talk too much, maybe I'm too quiet, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I just don't fit. Sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for myself to change. Like there's some version of me that's lighter, easier, better. Someone who doesn't overthink. Someone who doesn't replay every conversation, every text, every glance in their head 100 times. Someone who can just exist without questioning whether they belong. But that version never shows up. And I ask myself almost every day, why am I like this? Why do I carry this weight that no one else seems to notice? Why do I care so much about people who don't care the same way? Why can't I stop overthinking? And the answer never comes easily, because maybe it's not one thing. Maybe it's 1,000 small things stacked on top of each other. Moments of neglect, moments of comparison, moments of being unseen. Maybe it's patterns I learned long ago that I never unlearned. Maybe it's just who I am. But the worst part isn't the question. The worst part is the quiet ache that comes with it. That feeling that even when people are around, even when someone laughs at your jokes or texts you first, a small voice whispers, you don't belong, you're too much, or maybe you're not enough. And I live with that voice every day. I try to ignore it. I try to distract myself. I try to be like everyone else, but the question always returns. It waits for me in the quiet moments. It waits in the pauses between texts. It waits when I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why every connection seems just out of reach. Why am I like this? Why can't I just be normal? That's when I started noticing it. The patterns I never admitted to myself. The way I give more than I take. The way I stay too long, hope too much, care too deeply. I see it in every relationship, every friendship, every fleeting connection I've ever had. It isn't that I'm unlucky. It isn't that everyone else is just better at life. It's that I've been conditioned to overextend, to protect others more than I protect myself, to chase love instead of letting it come to me, to give my heart away even when the other person hasn't earned the right to hold it. I remember the first time I realized this wasn't normal. I had spent weeks texting someone who barely noticed me. I kept giving my time, my thoughts, my energy, while they disappeared into silence for hours, days. And I kept thinking, maybe they're busy. Maybe they'll come around. Maybe I'm not being enough. But slowly, painfully, I understood. It wasn't about me at all. It was about them. And the hardest part? I had been holding myself accountable for something I couldn't control. I saw it everywhere. Friends who only call when it's convenient. People who compliment you, then forget you exist. Romantic interests who pull away just as soon as things feel steady. And I realized something. I had been loving them the wrong way. Not because I wasn't capable of loving fully, but because I had no boundaries. I gave my full heart to people who weren't ready for it. And every time I left pieces of myself behind, I start asking deeper questions. Why do I stay when it's clear I'm not valued? Why do I bend, apologize, over-explain? Why do I expect someone to see my worth when they're clearly showing me they don't care? And the answer is terrifying in its simplicity. I was afraid of losing love, even love that wasn't real. I was terrified of being alone, even if it meant compromising my own peace. I had learned to equate my worth with how much I could give, how much I could endure, how much I could adjust, and that terrified, overextending version of me had become the default. But then I noticed something else. It isn't just patterns with other people, it's patterns with myself. The constant inner monologue, the replaying of conversations, the analyzing every smile, every glance, every pause. The voice that says, "You're not enough, you're too much, you'll never be chosen." And I realize I've been repeating those patterns for years. I've trained myself to overthink, overgive, overhope. And that voice has been guiding my actions long before anyone else ever could. That's when the shift begins. Not dramatic, not overnight, but slowly, quietly. I start noticing my reactions instead of automatically responding. I start asking, am I staying because I want to, or because I'm scared to leave? I start realizing my care doesn't have to be proof of my worth. I begin to understand that love isn't a currency to spend until someone decides to choose me. And in that recognition, there's both relief and grief. Relief because I see the patterns clearly for the first time. Grief because I realize how much energy I've wasted on people who weren't meant to stay. Grief because I see how much of myself I've given away, hoping someone would notice, hoping someone would finally love me enough. And grief because I understand. Some of it wasn't anyone else's fault. It was mine too. I hadn't protected myself. I hadn't defined my limits. I hadn't set the standard for how I deserved to be treated. But even in the grief, there's a spark of something new. A quiet, steady understanding that I can change. I can break these patterns. I can start caring without overgiving. I can love without losing myself. I can finally be seen not through the lens of what I do for others, but for who I am. And that understanding, that's the first step toward reclaiming me. It starts with small decisions, tiny, almost imperceptible changes in how I interact with the world. I stop answering immediately, not out of spite, but because I don't want my energy to be dictated by someone else's schedule, their moods, their convenience. I notice how much I've been chasing, and I decide no more. I begin to test it quietly. A friend ignores a message for hours. I don't panic. A romantic interest disappears for a day. I don't spiral. I sit with the discomfort instead of overcompensating. And at first it feels unnatural, like I'm breaking some rule I didn't know I'd written for myself. But the truth is, the rule was never real. It was fear. Fear that if I didn't bend, if I didn't chase, if I didn't prove my worth constantly, no one would ever care. So I start saying no, not loudly, not aggressively, but firmly, internally, and sometimes aloud. No, I won't text first all the time. No, I won't apologize for feeling hurt when someone treats me coldly. No, I won't give more than I receive. No, I won't stay in a space where my presence is optional. And as I practice it, I notice the shift. A weight lifts. I'm not panicking anymore. I'm not analyzing every pause, every delayed reply, every subtle shift in tone. I start matching energy instead of overextending. I start observing instead of hoping. I start feeling my own value instead of seeking validation. It's not about being cold. It's about being measured. It's not about pushing people away. It's about protecting myself. I realize that boundaries aren't walls. They're maps. They show people where I begin and end, and anyone who truly cares will navigate them. Anyone who doesn't belong in my life anyway. I notice how differently people respond. Some retreat, some complain, some try harder. And for the first time, I don't take it personally. I watch the difference between someone who genuinely values me and someone who only wants the version of me they can take advantage of. It's a clarity I've never had before. A quiet strength that doesn't feel dramatic, doesn't feel flashy, doesn't need approval. It just is. I also start reclaiming the quiet parts of myself I had abandoned. The things I once loved but suppressed to fit in. The hobbies, the thoughts, the feelings I pushed aside because I thought they were too much, too awkward, too unnecessary. I bring them back slowly, intentionally, without judgment. And in doing so, I start recognizing my own rhythm, my own identity. And the most surprising part? I start enjoying my own company. Not because I have to, not because I'm lonely, but because I finally know I deserve to exist for myself first. I don't need constant reassurance. I don't need permission to be loved. I just need to recognize my own worth and act accordingly. I start noticing that the anxiety, the fear, the compulsion to overgive, it's still there sometimes, but now I observe it instead of letting it dictate my actions. I say to myself, yes, you feel afraid. Yes, you want them to care more, but that doesn't mean you have to give your all to someone who isn't ready. I realize patience doesn't mean tolerating imbalance. Loyalty doesn't mean sacrificing your peace. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, a transformation takes place. I stop being desperate for someone else's approval. I stop bending myself into shapes I think others want. I stop confusing overgiving with value. I start choosing calm, measured connection over chaos. I start giving my heart only when it is welcomed, respected, and matched. I start feeling powerful, not in a loud, boastful way, but in a quiet, undeniable way. I realize that the version of me who was lost, exhausted, and constantly questioning herself is still there. But now she's learning. She's learning to protect herself. She's learning to honor her time and energy. She's learning that being loved isn't a prize you chase. It's a state you allow, with boundaries intact. And for the first time, I can see a future where I don't feel constantly depleted by my own overgiving, where I don't stay in emotional limbo because I'm afraid to enforce my own limits, where I don't wonder every day, why am I like this? Because now I'm beginning to understand. I'm like this because I cared too much in a world that doesn't always care back. I'm like this because I gave without limits, in spaces that demanded none. I'm like this because I learned patterns of overextending when I was young. And most importantly, I'm like this because I have the capacity to feel deeply, to love fully, and to grow from every mistake. And that is something I can choose to carry forward instead of letting it break me. And finally, I realized something. Being like this isn't a curse. It isn't a flaw. It's the sum of every heartbreak, every misstep, every moment I gave too much without hesitation. It's the evidence that I care deeply, that I feel fully, that I notice what others overlook. I stop asking, why am I like this? And I start asking, how do I honor this? I honor it by protecting myself, by choosing when and how I give, by knowing that my love isn't meant to be dispersed to anyone who isn't willing to meet me halfway. I honor it by acknowledging that my past pain wasn't wasted. It was preparation. It taught me what I can tolerate, what I won't, and what I deserve. I notice the difference in my energy. I walk into a room, and I'm no longer looking for validation. I'm no longer chasing approval. I move with quiet confidence, grounded in the understanding that my worth isn't conditional. I love deeply, but carefully. I care fully, but selectively. I give myself first, and anyone who wants a place in my life must meet me there. And it feels different. The anxiety eases. The constant fear of abandonment softens. The endless replaying of moments that weren't mine to fix loses its power. I recognize that love isn't a puzzle I have to solve, and people aren't tests I have to pass. I don't have to bend myself to fit someone else's rhythm. I don't have to dilute my presence to make someone else comfortable. Sometimes I still feel the old pull, the impulse to overgive, to chase, to hope for more than is offered. But now, I watch it, I feel it, and I respond consciously. I set limits. I speak my truth. I step back when needed, and I don't apologize for protecting my peace. I also start to see love differently, not as something I earn through effort or sacrifice, not as something I prove by staying when it hurts. Love is a choice, mutual and steady. It is something that flows naturally when both people are ready to receive and give equally. And if it doesn't, I don't force it. I don't beg for it. I let it go. And in letting go, I find freedom. Freedom to exist fully without exhaustion. Freedom to care without fear. Freedom to trust that the right connections will recognize my value without demanding I shrink myself. I look back at the person I was, the one who constantly asked, why am I like this? The one who blamed herself, who overthought, who overgave, who doubted every gesture, every word, every pause. I reach out to her in my mind and I say, you were learning, you were surviving, you were preparing, and now I step forward with a quiet strength. I don't need to be chosen by everyone. I don't need constant validation. I don't need someone to prove that I'm worthy of love. I already am. I stayed when it was hard. I cared when it was messy. I reflected when it hurt, and I grew. Pain didn't break me. It refined me, and now I'm ready. Ready to love. Ready to protect. Ready to exist fully in a world where my energy is respected, my care is valued, and my boundaries are honored. And for the first time in a long time, I don't ask, why am I like this? Anymore. I say, I am like this, and that is enough. You used to be the one I could tell everything to, the one whose voice made the noise in my head quiet, the one who made me feel like I mattered in a world that always felt too loud, too fast, too much. You didn't have to try, you just were. And somehow I made you my anchor. I loved quietly. I loved in the way that doesn't announce itself to the world. I listened when you needed to talk, stayed up when you couldn't sleep, checked in without asking. I gave pieces of myself without thinking twice. And every time I did, I believed it mattered to you. I thought maybe you saw me, really saw me. At first you did. You smiled at the little things I noticed. You laughed at my dumb jokes. You asked how my day went without it feeling like an obligation. And I let myself hope. I imagined a life with you, quiet moments, small routines, shared laughs. I let my heart lean into you because you leaned back. I believed in the reciprocity, in the quiet consistency. But slowly it shifted. First it was a day without a text. Then 2. Then your voice started sounding distant, even when you were in the room. Replies got shorter. Your attention wandered. I noticed immediately because my heart had grown so used to you being there. And instead of stepping back, I doubled down. I texted again. I explained myself. I tried to shrink into the space I thought I should occupy, so I wouldn't be too much. I gave more because you had already started giving less. And that's when it hit me. The pattern. I'd been here before, in different forms, with people who didn't stay, people who didn't choose me the way I chose them. And yet, I kept offering the same loyalty, the same care, because the feeling of being chosen, even if temporary, felt too precious to let go. I began to wonder if maybe I was the problem. If my quiet love, the kind that doesn't demand attention, doesn't shout, doesn't fill rooms, was somehow not enough for someone like you. You thrived in light and energy and people, while I needed silence to recharge. Loving loudly wasn't my way. And maybe that's why I didn't stop loving you even when I should have. Because even when I knew you were pulling away, my heart clung to the idea that you'd come back, that you'd notice, that you'd see what you were leaving behind. But you never did. Eventually I stopped reaching out. I stopped explaining. I stopped holding pieces of myself for you to take. And in that silence, I realized something I didn't want to admit. The love I gave wasn't enough to make you stay. And the quiet, steady, intentional love that was my everything was invisible to you. You didn't see it. You didn't feel it the way I felt it. I won't lie, the hurt is still there. It lives in the little things. The way your name pops up in my head. The songs you used to play, the laughs we shared, the quiet routines I built around you that now feel like empty echoes. And yet, I don't hate you. I just understand. I understand the kind of people you are, and the kind of people I am. I understand that loving someone quietly doesn't make it less real, and being chosen by someone doesn't always mean they'll see your worth. The hardest part is learning to let go of someone who never fully stayed, while still keeping yourself open to love. I gave you my all, and now I have to give the rest to me. I have to protect the parts of myself that hurt the most, that still hope, that still care. Loving deeply doesn't guarantee being loved back, but it guarantees knowing your own heart. And that's where I start. After you left, the world didn't change. The sun still rose, the streets still buzzed, and people still laughed around me. But my chest felt hollow in ways that no one could see. I kept moving, kept showing up, kept pretending that the quiet ache inside me wasn't there. Because the truth is, no one notices quiet heartbreak. They only notice the anger, the yelling, the dramatic exits, not the way your heart keeps loving in silence even when it's broken. I realized I had spent so long giving my energy to someone else that I forgot what it felt like to give it to myself. I'd been the person everyone leaned on, the one who listened, who understood, who stayed calm when chaos hit. But I had no one to listen to me, no one to understand that I was quietly unraveling. I carried my pain like an invisible weight, hoping it wouldn't show, and I learned something important. Caring deeply doesn't always mean being rewarded. Being consistent, being kind, being loyal. It doesn't guarantee you'll be chosen even when your heart screams that it should. Some people just can't see the kind of love you offer, and some people leave not because your love wasn't enough, but because they weren't ready for it, or they never knew how to handle it. I stopped pretending that the quiet ache would disappear overnight. I let myself feel it. I let myself stare at my phone and resist the urge to text you, to explain, to plead for acknowledgement that would never come. I let myself replay our moments, the ones I thought were sacred, and mourn them properly. Not with anger, not with revenge, not with performance, but with honest grief. It was in that quiet morning that I started to understand something else. My love, my loyalty, my calm presence. It wasn't broken. It wasn't flawed. It was real, even if the world didn't recognize it. Loving quietly doesn't mean loving less. It means loving in a way that doesn't need applause, that doesn't need validation, that doesn't need to be returned in the same way to be meaningful. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I started to reclaim my energy. I learned to sit with myself without the constant craving for someone else's attention. I started noticing my own heartbeat, my own thoughts, my own small victories. I let my love for myself, once dormant, grow quietly alongside the shadow of what I lost. The heartbreak didn't vanish. It lingered soft and persistent, a reminder of how much I was capable of feeling. But I realized I could survive it. I could move through it. I could carry it without letting it define me. Because sometimes the strongest love isn't the love you get back. It's the love you refuse to let break you, even when it leaves empty-handed. And that was the first lesson in truly choosing myself. After months of carrying the quiet ache, I started noticing the little things about myself again, the things I had neglected while my heart was tied to someone who didn't stay. I noticed how my mind would wander into the spaces I used to fill with them, and I realized I had a choice. I could let it haunt me, or I could let it teach me. Being the kind of person who loves quietly, who gives without expecting, who cares deeply. It left me bruised, yes, but it also left me capable. Capable of understanding my own worth, capable of feeling without apology, capable of holding space for someone else without losing myself. I started small, a quiet walk at night, just me and the streetlights, listening to music that made me feel even if it hurt, reading, writing, thinking. I remembered that I didn't need constant stimulation, loud voices, or validation to exist fully. My calm, my steadiness, my thoughtfulness, they weren't flaws. They were my armor, my way of navigating a world that often misunderstood soft hearts. And then, slowly, I started noticing people again. Not anyone specific, not in that desperate, clutching way I used to, but in a curious, open way. People who spoke gently, who listened without asking for proof of loyalty. People whose presence felt safe, not consuming. And I realized that the fear of being hurt again didn't have to dictate every interaction. It could guide me instead, teach me to see who truly deserves my time, my care, my energy. The hardest part wasn't learning to trust others, it was learning to trust myself. To know that if someone leaves, it doesn't mean I'm broken. To know that if someone doesn't choose me, it doesn't erase the love I gave, or the love I'm capable of giving in the future. To know that being quietly devoted isn't a weakness. It's a strength that only the right person will recognize. I started imagining love differently, not the all-consuming, overwhelming kind that leaves you hollow when it disappears, but the kind that grows steadily, quietly, intentionally. The kind that doesn't need to fill rooms or draw attention to itself. The kind that respects the space you need, the calm you crave, the heart that refuses to perform just to be seen. And in that realization, I began to heal. Not fully, not yet, but enough to know that my past heartbreak didn't define me. That my loyalty, my care, my patience, they weren't liabilities. They were the very things that would one day make someone feel home. The very things that would make someone grateful for the depth of what I offer. I didn't know if I'd ever stop being cautious, stop noticing the patterns, stop fearing the quiet pull of attachment. But I knew that I could exist fully, love fully, and protect my heart fully, even if the world didn't always recognize it. And that, I think, is where the real strength lives, in the quiet endurance of a heart that loves deeply, even after it's been broken. Eventually the quiet ache softened, not vanished. Heartbreak doesn't just disappear, but softened. Like a wound that stops bleeding and starts to scar. I learned that I could care deeply without losing myself, that my loyalty didn't have to be a trap, and that my quiet love wasn't something to apologize for. I began to notice the difference between people who merely take and those who choose to give back. I could see the patterns clearly now, the ones I used to fall for, the ones who faded when I leaned in, and instead of chasing them, I stepped back. I let them walk their path and stopped questioning my worth when they didn't stay. I discovered that being the introvert, the quietly devoted, the one who loves without noise, those weren't flaws. They were the lens through which I could see the right people, the ones who wouldn't mistake my calm for boredom or my need for space for distance. I realized that the kind of love I give isn't flashy, but it is enduring. It is steady. It is rare. And it deserves to be seen by someone capable of holding it with care. And then in a moment I didn't plan for, someone appeared, not the echo of the past, not a mirror of what I thought I wanted, but someone who recognized the quiet strength I carry. They didn't demand, they didn't rush, they didn't force me to perform. They simply saw me. And that recognition, that simple choice to see me as I am, felt like home in a way I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. I realized finally that heartbreak isn't just pain, it's preparation. It's training your heart to recognize what is real, what is worth giving to, what is worth waiting for. Every tear, every lonely night, every moment I thought I wasn't enough. They were teaching me how to love wisely, how to protect myself without closing off, how to stay open without losing my dignity. I still care deeply, I always will, but now I care wisely. I offer my heart fully but not recklessly. I choose people who see it, who honor it, who don't make me shrink to fit their world. And in that, I found something stronger than love itself, respect for myself, even in the shadow of the love I've lost. Because the truth I finally understand is this: a heart that has loved quietly, fiercely, and deeply is not broken. It is alive. And one day, that heart will be met by someone who knows its value, someone who chooses it, someone who doesn't need it explained. And until that day comes, I carry myself with the knowledge that my love is rare, my loyalty is precious, and my quiet strength is enough. No one chooses me. That's the thought that used to sit in my chest at night, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough to echo. No one chooses me. I didn't arrive at that conclusion all at once. It built itself slowly, through almost relationships, through I'm not ready, through watching someone I cared about choose somebody else, through being the dependable one, the understanding one, the one who never made things complicated. and still somehow never being the one they stayed for. I was always close to being official, close to being enough, close to being someone's first choice. But close doesn't count when you're the one left standing alone. I started noticing a pattern. I was the person people opened up to, the one they vented to about their ex, the one they said felt safe, the one they said was different. But when it came time to actually commit, they hesitated and eventually they chose someone else. It's hard not to internalize that. You start scanning yourself for flaws. Maybe I'm too quiet, maybe I'm too available, maybe I care too much, maybe I don't excite people the way chaos does. Maybe I'm the stable option, and stable isn't thrilling enough to win. You watch people chase unpredictability while you offer consistency. You watch them ignore loyalty while complaining about being hurt. And somewhere in that cycle, you start to wonder if being steady is invisible. No one chooses me. That thought followed me into new connections. I'd start hopeful, but guarded. I'd look for signs of withdrawal before they even happened. I'd brace for the moment the energy shifted, and the worst part, sometimes my fear of not being chosen made me act like I wasn't worth choosing. I'd overextend, overprove, overgive, as if effort could guarantee permanence. But here's what took me the longest to understand. Being chosen isn't about convincing someone. It's about alignment. I wasn't being overlooked because I lacked value. I was being bypassed because I was trying to fit into spaces that weren't built for me. Some people want excitement more than stability. Some people want attention more than depth. Some people say they want peace but choose chaos because it feels familiar. And that's not a reflection of my worth. It's a reflection of where they are emotionally. The real shift happened when I stopped asking, why don't they choose me? And started asking, why am I choosing people who hesitate about me? That question hurt because it meant taking accountability. It meant admitting that I was tolerating uncertainty just to avoid being alone. It meant recognizing that I was trying to earn spots in people's lives that should have been offered freely. And once I saw that clearly, something changed. I stopped auditioning. I stopped performing emotional gymnastics to keep someone interested. I stopped mistaking mixed signals for mystery. I stopped chasing people who needed convincing. And slowly the narrative shifted. No one chooses me became I don't settle for someone who doesn't. There's a quiet confidence that comes with that. Not arrogance, not bitterness, just clarity. Because the truth is, I don't need to be chosen by everyone. I need to be chosen by someone who sees what I bring without being persuaded. Someone who values steadiness. Someone who respects loyalty. Someone who understands that calm love isn't boring. It's secure. For a long time I thought being repeatedly left meant I was lacking something. Now I understand it means I haven't met someone aligned with me yet. And that's okay. Because I would rather wait than be temporarily selected. I would rather stand alone in my standards than shrink to fit into someone's uncertainty. No one chooses me. Not yet, but I choose myself. And the day someone steps into my life and matches that energy, it won't feel forced. It won't feel fragile. It won't feel like I'm barely holding on to their attention. It'll feel steady. And this time, I won't question it. The hardest part about believing no one chooses me isn't the loneliness. It's the comparison. Watching people around you fall into relationships so effortlessly. Watching them get the good morning texts, the public posts, the reassurance. Watching someone else be claimed confidently while you're still sitting with unanswered questions. You start wondering what they have that you don't. Are they more attractive, more outgoing, less intense, less emotional? You dissect yourself in ways you'd never dissect anyone else. And the dangerous thing about that mindset is it slowly lowers your standards. Because when you feel unchosen long enough, you start accepting partial effort as proof of progress. A late reply feels like hope. A half plan feels like commitment. A let's see where this goes feels like security. You tell yourself to be patient, to be understanding, to not ask for too much, but deep down you know. You know when someone is unsure about you. You feel it in the pauses, in the hesitation, in the way their effort fluctuates. And still, you stay, because being almost chosen feels safer than being alone again. That's a cycle I had to break. I had to sit with the discomfort of walking away first. I had to choose silence instead of chasing clarity. I had to let people lose access to me without sending one last paragraph trying to explain my worth. That was new for me. But something powerful happens when you stop begging to be selected. You start carrying yourself differently. You don't rush emotional intimacy. You don't overshare to fast-track connection. You don't build futures in your head off 2 weeks of consistency. You observe. You pace yourself. You protect your energy. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like no one is choosing you. It feels like you're being selective. There's a big difference, because the right person won't need convincing. They won't treat commitment like a gamble. They won't make you feel like you're in competition for basic reassurance. They'll step forward confidently. And when that happens, you won't feel anxious. You won't feel like you're waiting for the shift. You'll feel calm. And calm is something I never associated with love before. But now I do. There was a night I remember clearly. Nothing dramatic had happened. No breakup text, no argument. Just another slow fade from someone who once seemed sure about me. And I sat there thinking, maybe this is just who I am. The backup plan. The emotional support character in everyone else's love story. That thought hurt more than any rejection ever did, because it wasn't about them anymore. It was about how I saw myself. I realized I had quietly built an identity around being the one people leave. So I expected it, braced for it, sometimes even tolerated behavior that confirmed it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When you believe you're not the one people choose, you subconsciously accept crumbs just to prove you're wrong. You ignore inconsistencies. You rationalize disrespect. You minimize your own needs, all because you're scared that asking for more will push them away. But the real shift happened when I asked myself something different. What if the problem isn't that no one chooses me? What if it's that I keep trying to be chosen by people who are incapable of choosing anyone properly? That question changed everything, because suddenly it wasn't about my worth. It was about compatibility, emotional maturity, timing. I started noticing something I'd ignored before. The people I was drawn to were often uncertain in general, not just about me, about life, about commitment, about themselves. And I was trying to build something stable with people who were still figuring out how to stand still. Of course, it kept collapsing, not because I was unworthy, but because I was planting myself in temporary soil. So I did something different. I stopped chasing potential, stopped falling for words without consistent action, stopped trying to prove I was worth keeping. Instead, I started asking myself, do I even feel chosen here? Not in the beginning excitement, not in the sweet talk, but in the consistency. And if the answer was no, I didn't fight for it. I let it go. And for the first time, walking away didn't feel like rejection. It felt like self-respect. I used to think the sentence, "no one chooses me," was a life sentence. Now I see it was a phase, a painful one, a humbling one, but a necessary one. Because somewhere along the way I confused being wanted with being valued. I confused attention with intention. I confused temporary excitement with long-term alignment. And every time someone left, I made it mean something about me. Now I know better. Being chosen isn't about being the loudest, the flashiest, or the most convenient. It's about being aligned with someone who recognizes depth when they see it. Someone who isn't intimidated by consistency. Someone who doesn't treat commitment like a trap. I stopped focusing on who wasn't picking me and started focusing on who I was becoming. Stronger, more self-aware, less afraid of standing alone. Because here's the truth that finally set me free. If someone has to debate whether they want you, they don't. And that's okay. Rejection isn't proof that you're lacking. It's proof that not everyone is meant to build with you. One day, someone will step into my life and there won't be hesitation. No mixed signals, no energy shifts, no quiet distancing, just clarity. And when that happens, I won't feel surprised. I won't feel lucky. I won't feel like I finally won. I'll feel ready. Because the seasons where no one chose me taught me how to choose myself. And once you truly do that, once you stop shrinking, stop chasing, stop auditioning for love, you don't feel unselected anymore. You feel selective. No one chooses me, not anymore. Now it's mutual.